News, views, voices of the global Indian community. India abroad.
Thank you. I'd say just a few words. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. It really is important to be able to talk about what we're doing here, to talk about USTDA's role a little bit. But first of all, to start with how wonderful it feels to be back in a room together with our partners from India, who we have walked a long way with. This, the 7th US-India Aviation Summit, is really, of course, has a long history. It's been 6 years, though, since we've met in person. And so I think this has particular meaning for all of us, and certainly what I have felt in the room this past day, and also yesterday as well. We gathered a little bit in the early evening of yesterday. I would say that there are already certain themes that are coming across to us, just the potential and the actual sort of growth in the aviation sector in India. The focus of everyone and the intentionality of the Indian government to really look at this growth in a way that so many of the consumers who are interested in flight, and this is across the country, across communities, can do so safely, securely, and with great efficiency. And that is where the partnership with US industry, with government-to-government stakeholders really has a role to play. At USTDA, we are very honored and pleased to be able to facilitate a convening like this. This will allow for that innovation that the ambassador just spoke about with the joining of collaboration that really makes things happen. So just a little bit about USTDA for those of you who might not know us well. We are focused on supporting the development of high-quality infrastructure in emerging economies and in partner countries across the world. But at the same time, we do this in a way to bring the US private sector into the picture in terms of innovations, in terms of technologies, in terms of partnership. This is very much a two-way street. We are learning from each other along the way. We are bringing our technologies, but very often our partners, including those in India, are bringing expertise, bringing knowledge of the lay of the land, and together we are able to formulate projects, results, action. A big part of what we call project preparation, which goes to infrastructure development, engages two things: well-designed projects and attracting financing and investment. And so for USDA, we provide grant funding for those activities that will unlock investment. These include feasibility studies, technical assistance, pilot projects. And we have partnered for over 30 years, which is really the life of this agency in India and in South Asia in general. I'll just mention an example, which is really goes to one of the announcements I made earlier today, which is our support for the Haryana Airports Development Corporation, where we're providing technical assistance to help develop cargo and logistics infrastructure at the Hisar Airport in the state of Haryana. The goal here is to help to strengthen supply chain networks. So I will stop there, because I think you'll all want to hear from the ambassador, but to again thank you for your presence here, to underscore how happy and how really, what's the word? I think optimistic for the future of our partnership. This is a long partnership, over 75 years of diplomatic relations. So the umbrella is there, but we're very proud to play a role in the day-to-day project and practical work that underscores this amazing meeting of the minds, meeting of our people, focused on the safety of our people in a very productive way. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions. Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Ebong, and thank you for the great work that you and your team do in India and around the world, and excitingly in the region. Remember, it's the US-India Aviation Summit, but also includes neighbors of India for the first time. And so thank you for that vision. Really, if there's one thing that breaks down borders, air travel is one of them. And that reminds us that we're so connected at our very best. We also see, such strong needs, both on the US and India side, of strengthening this relationship, because the US is a unique country poised to assist India in its growth. India is growing faster than the capacity of almost any other country in the world to match that growth. But so far, India's done a brilliant job. I've witnessed that myself in the new infrastructure, in the flights that I take regularly with myself, my family, my colleagues. And just exploring India today is so different in 2024 than it was, in 1985 when I first got there. And that is testament to the hard work of all of our colleagues. I'd also say that India has a lot to teach the United States. Here at Select USA, where we have the largest delegation from India, and I had artificial intelligence companies coming up to me to work with our airlines on predictive technology. Certainly we see the maintenance capacity, the pilots that are being trained, the work that's being done to produce jobs here through airline purchases. This is a win-win-win. And I love, by the way, that so many of our metaphors in English language come from flight language. Like we're poised for takeoff, talk about turbulence, you even said pilot project, like we have these things that are really all about how our imagination takes over when it comes to air travel. But it also is a historic moment. I don't know of any country in the world growing in the aviation sector as fast as India. I don't know as any other country in the world as strong in the aviation sector as the United States. And I know of no partnership between two countries in which we've committed to the technologies of the future, the co-development, the co-production, and the frictionless exchange of ideas, products, people, and training as between the United States and India. So we're in a very lucky position, and this is really about bringing the people together who will implement that even faster, because our people demand more safety. They want to have more pilots. They want to have more planes. They want to have more jobs. They want to have more vacations. They want to have more business deals, and they all meet in a successful US-India aviation partnership. So congratulations to everybody. Thank you so much, Administrator, for bringing us together. And I want to give my personal thanks to the Indian government and to our Secretary of Aviation and his team for being here, coming to Washington, D.C. to make sure that we make this dream an absolute reality. So with that, happy to answer your questions.
If I could go first.
Yeah.
Question to both of you. Take a shot at that. In general, yes, we know what the outcomes of this might be, bring together the private sector and the government on the two sides. But I'm sure, what are your goals from this summit, specific goals? I mean, as I said, the civil aviation industry is growing, and there's demand for investment, there's demand for pilot training, all kinds of stuff. But what do you think is your chief outcome from this summit, if I could put it that way? Ambassador, you the same question.
So from our perspective, a couple of things. One, I think it's very important to highlight and give a platform to the work that has been done, because in there you will find examples of ways to move forward. So there's some hard work being done both in the industry and in government sectors to address issues, to move aviation safety, aviation security forward. So I think it's important to give a platform for that. Secondly, I think it's important to have the experts gathered who can tell us about the technologies that we hear so much about. Green aviation, sustainable aviation fuel, the intersects with aviation and other new technologies, digitalization. Important to uplift those, but also understand the challenges and opportunities. I think in a very practical way, a successful outcome would be if we could top the over $300 million of transactions, of deals that came out of the last US-India Aviation Summit. That is a very tangible outcome that we experienced from the last summit in 2018. So as an agency that's seeking to bring the private sector into opportunities that will both have a positive impact on the sector, but also, as the ambassador said, everybody wants to create jobs, everybody wants to see success. So if we can succeed in tangible transactions coming out of this joining together, this ability to connect, and in a way to top what we did in 2018, that would be a very good outcome, I would say. And then from our agency's work, frankly, we love to see projects come out of gatherings like this. So real concrete concepts, ideas, but that we can see a way to support through our tools, whether it is our pilot studies, no pun intended, but technical assistance, etc. I would love it if we could tangibly see some projects come out of this. I'll pause there, over to you, Ambassador.
That's a really good list. I don't know that I'd add a lot more. I think in simple terms, buying more planes and parts from each other, fixing more planes together by establishing some MRO facilities in India that would train generation and help planes that are going to or through India around the world to make that a real hub. Third is to align our safety and security standards. I'll be meeting with Secretary Mayorkas at the Department of Homeland Security after this, and there's a lot of interest in the TSA model and other similar lessons for Indian security. Fourth, greener aviation, to have greener aviation fuels and operations. And then fifth, just joint planning on routes. I think opening up new routes would be a great outcome, and joint planning on them, so we're not always in both of our countries to get to each other flying through a third country.
Just one short follow-up. Considering you said the last summit was worth $300 million, what are you expecting this time?
More.
It's a good answer.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
301. No, anybody else? Yeah, please, love it.
Thank you. Administrator, you spoke about Hisar Airport, right? In addition to that, are there any other projects in pipeline for India that you're working on? And Ambassador, in the morning, senior officials spoke about two things. One, the possibility of MOU on sharing of sensitive information related to travel, and other was one-stop agreement. Can you shed some light if there's any movement on those two aspects?
I'll start out with projects that or potential projects. I will point to a couple of reverse trade missions. These are part of our partnership building activities where we bring delegations from our partner countries to the United States to engage with technology suppliers, but engage in capacity building, engage also with financiers. So an example is one that we just finished. It was a global one, but Indian delegates were included, which was focused on the Transportation Security Administration, TSA's, training symposium in Las Vegas. But we didn't stop there. We brought our delegates to Boston to meet with companies and also to Washington, D.C. So we're going to do, we have on board those planned in a variety of topics, including, I think, cybersecurity, actually, which this morning was identified as an important intersect with the aviation sector. If we're increasing the amount of people flying, we have to make sure that their data is secure. So that's going to be an area of focus. And then we have a pipeline of projects which we are developing in green master planning, in airport security, and in increasing secure navigation through satellite-based systems. These are some examples that are in the pipeline.
Yeah, I don't think I had anything more. We've never, I'll just say this on the ground, we've never worked more closely with our Indian counterparts on cyber, on counterterrorism, and on airport security than we do today. So sharing of information happens regularly on the most sensitive topics with each other, to be able to make sure that we're stronger together. Our enemies, they, people who would want to cause us harm, they collaborate all the time. They learn with each other all the time, hackers, state actors, others. It's time that we share information together instead of kind of living in a silo, being ashamed of whatever vulnerabilities we have. I think we're stronger together.
Sir, what are the US and India collaborating on technological advancement?
Yeah, well, this is a great area.
Especially this, this such as the next generation aircraft or traffic management system,
Sure.
or sustainability of aviation.
Fuels, yeah. So the Global Biofuels Alliance, which was just launched at G20 last year, is really with the US and India as the twin pillars. India is the founding member, but us as the, one of the co-chairs, I think is going to focus quite a bit on aviation fuels, as well as fuels for cars and ships as well. So that's the first place that I think we're doing a lot of work. Second, in the military aviation sector, obviously, the most incredible deal I've witnessed in my lifetime between the United States and anybody is the GE engine deal, which is the most exquisite engine technology for the next generation of fighter jets. But when you build an ecosystem, as we learned in this country, around military aviation, you get a lot of civilian aviation innovation. So as companies learn how to make the engines, already India makes the fuselages for things like our Apache helicopters, the only place in the world that they're made, actually, not even in the United States anymore, but India. These are ones that can go into helicopters being made indigenously, fighter jets, which of course India is developing its next generation of the Tejas fighter jet, and more. So we're seeing kind of in some ways the military cutting edge technology take the lead. But I do think that India's ambitions, it'll be up to India, their ambitions in the civilian aerospace sector, but certainly parts, maintenance, repair is a great place to get started. Civilian aircraft are highly complicated pieces, like second maybe to aircraft carriers in the world, pieces of equipment. So it's not something that people can turn a dial and suddenly produce 2 years later. But we're committed to helping India become a great supplier, build an ecosystem, and the sky's the limit on what we can share together.
And then the only thing, oh sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, one more question. What are the joint initiatives on the safety aspects?
So we have a MOU that we're putting together between our TSA and hopefully our Indian counterparts that would look at standards that would be the same on both sides of the Indo-Pacific and shared best practices. So to me, that will be, hopefully, we're hopeful that India's expressed interest in it. It's not something that's done, but we, I think, laid out very clearly we're willing to be partners, and they've come and visited TSA and been really, I think, blown away by how advanced and robust it is. And looking now that India does an amazing job with security in airports today, but as it doubles and doubles again, what sort of system they can put in place.
I was just going to add that as these arrangements come into place and as there are new technologies that perhaps might be proven to work in another context, but not in a civilian context or in a context in India, then tools that we have, such as the pilot projects, I'm not mentioning that on purpose, but the tools that we have to be able to test, to be able to see feasibility, to be able to provide technical assistance, even training in the context of how to then sustain these investments, how an agency like USTDA could contribute along with our partners in these endeavors.
Go ahead.
I guess I suppose.
Sure. It's your turn again, right?
So, if I could request you to talk a little bit more about your upcoming meeting with Secretary Mayorkas about safety and security in civil aviation.
Sure. I mean, we're meeting about a whole bunch of things, including some of the great work that came out of the Homeland Security Dialogue, which we had between the U.S. and India with our Deputy Secretary and the Home Secretary for India, for Home Affairs. So that's one aspect. We'll be talking about immigration and some other things too. But in terms of the Department of Homeland Security oversees, TSA and some of the border operations. And so how can we share things like biometrics between our systems? How can we identify bad people and alert a friendly country like India to the US and US to India on who those individuals are. How can we make sure that the law enforcement's working together to detain that, whether it's on those individuals, whether it's in drug operations, trafficking in persons, et cetera, and then just overall safety in airports. How do we develop those standards together? The U.S. has been pretty robust after our experience after 9/11, and India has expressed interest in that. So we're ready, willing, and able to deploy people on the ground. I think we recently had a new position approved in India at the U.S. mission for a TSA representative that we look forward to fulfilling. And that person is going to be a resource really for India as much as they'll be a representative for aviation safety back to the U.S.
Are we looking at an agreement or an MOU?
I don't think it is. I mean, well, we hope between TSA and Indian authorities, yes, we do.
I believe we have time for one more question, if there are any.
I don't know who's going to win the World Cup. Don't ask me. But I bet on India.
So last one, I'll take the last one.
Okay, sure.
Nobody else will. Is there MRO happening in defense?
Yes.
Aviation, right? So
We already do have MRO in India around defense, and I think increasingly India is loud and clear told some of our airplane manufacturers in the civil side they want to expand and have more capacity in the civil aviation sector as well to do MROs. But yeah, we already do have that on the defense side. Everything from our ships, by the way, we go to Indian shipyards now,
yes,
but also on the aviation side we do have some, and we look to expand more. Great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Good to be there.
Thank you.